loves, it's Lacey and welcome to our space. So today we're going to be making this mini epoxy resin winter village. I am in love with how this turned out and I cannot wait to show you how I did it. So first of all, I have here two silicone molds. These are treat molds from Joann Fabrics and they were $14.99, but I got them half off on sale. And so as you can see, they're very flexible and they're made out of silicone and they're very detailed. One has houses on it and one has snowflakes. I'm going to be using Amazing Clear Cast epoxy resin. It is a 1-to-1 system, meaning that you use equal parts 1-to-1, and it takes about 35 to 40 minutes that you can work with it, and then 12 to 24 hours to set up. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little bucket that I got from Home Depot. It has measurements on it. Because these are not very deep, I'm going to be using it. It's about a quart. I also have this silicone spatula to stir it with because resin doesn't stick to this after it dries. And I have gloves for protection. I have a heat gun here with a stand on it, and we're going to be using this to heat up our resin. We'll talk about that in a second. And I also have some safety glasses for my face to make sure that my eyes are protected. I also have a mask, and I'm going to be opening windows for ventilation. And I also have a ceiling fan on. So here we are pouring our resin into our bucket. It's a two-part system, like I said before, and what this is the first agent, part A, and then we need part B. I'm putting 4 ounces of part A into our bucket, and you can already see I have my gloves on, and then I'm going to be putting 4 ounces of part B in. Part B is a little thinner than part A, and so I'm being really careful not to overfill it. You want equal parts or else your resin is not going to set up properly. So I wait, and I picked it up and I made sure that at eye level it looked like it was going to be the right amount, and I'm letting it settle, and then I'm just tapping it off. So then after that, I have my heat gun already on, blowing heat at the bucket, and I am slowly stirring it and turning it in front of the heat gun, heating up the resin. Now what this does is it helps with the creation of bubbles in your resin. You want very little bubbles in your resin, so that's why you stir it slowly, and this is why I'm also using a silicone stirrer, because it doesn't create as many bubbles. Once I have that set up, I make sure that my mold is clean, there's no debris, and I slowly, this is in real time, pour resin in the middle of the mold, and make sure you don't overfill these. I did slightly overfill this one just by a hair, and this one in the middle. If you get them too full, they tend to overflow, especially if you have to move it at all. I have this on my cutting mat to make sure I don't damage my tabletop, and to make sure that I'm able to move this if I need to, just slightly. 8 ounces of resins ended up filling the top row of houses, and then I scraped the remainder into one of the little tiny openings, which is the reindeer there. So that was 8 ounces. I had to make more, and I didn't know how much I needed for each one of these. So when I decided to make more of it, I doubled that so I could fill in the other trays. I did all the houses, and then I'm doing just half a tray of these snowflakes, and I'm doing them in even numbers. Then after that, I let this tray sit for about 5 minutes, and you can see at the top on that little house, their bubbles all rose to the top, or most of them did. And so I am taking my craft heat gun and I am slowly going over it and moving it around. Never hold it in one spot, and I'm popping the bubbles. You can do this with a torch, but with these molds, because these are treat molds and not silicone molds for resin, I didn't want to use a torch on it. Then I let it set for about 26 hours, and now I'm going to demold them. And you can see when I take these out that they are perfectly clear. There are some tiny bubbles in a couple of them, but they are so clear and so nice, and they came out perfectly. These molds were completely fine. They didn't have any issue at all when I used the heat gun on them, and they released this without even spraying them with any resin release. You can see right through all of these, and all of the houses and the deer all sit up on their own. They don't need anything to help them sit up, and they are really nice. I love how thick they are, and I just knew these would be perfect to make a little winter village. Now, I'm just gonna take all of these out here quickly so you can see that they come out really well, and then I'm gonna take out the snowflakes and show you what I did a little bit different on them. So for all the snowflakes, they came out perfectly as well, but they are different thicknesses. I didn't want them as thick as the snowflake molds were. They were just over an inch, I think, and so I just poured them at different levels. Some of them are really thin, and then a couple of them are kind of thick. But look at this resin. You can see my hand all the way through that house, and they are just perfect. So next, here I am. I have some rub and buff in my hand in the color gold leaf, and as you can see, I have some blue snowflakes here. I made some gifts for some other people with resin, and I didn't show you those because I'm doing this project all together, but I made some little blue snowflake with some leftover of it, and I just want to show you that I'm taking a Q-tip and rubbing the rub and buff on the raised part that shows the actual detail on the snowflake, and it turned out really pretty. After I got it all on there, I wiped it off with a little wet wipe, and you can see how the gold flecks go onto that. So next, I am taking some fishing wire. You can get this at Dollar Tree, but I got mine at, I do believe, Ollie's or Dunham's or something. And I'm just going to cut some loops off and then glue them to one of the corners of these snowflakes that are more like a star in order to make hangers, and you can use these as like ornaments on your Christmas tree. So I just want to show you one of the other options you can do. But for these clear ones, I'm going to take two that are matching and take a piece of fishing wire without looping it, just a long piece, and I'm going to glue it to the back side of it, and then put little dots all the way around the edge, and then glue another one on the back side to the back side of this one. So you will see on these, the detail is on both front sides. So when you hold it up, it looks like a snowflake on both sides. And I do that to this circular looking one, and then two different sizes of the ones that look like stars. So moving on, I have these brass reef rings from Dollar Tree. You get 3 in a pack, and I'm going to be using the middle one here. So I take the middle one out and I break it where it's connected. You can push it with your 2 thumbs and it will just snap. Once I get one out and I do that, then I bend it over into like an arch. And they're really flexible, very easy to do. And I just make it like an arch by using my 2 thumbs like this, bending it. Once I get it like that, I'm going to take a Dollar Tree fancy serving dish plate. These are in over by like the party supplies and stuff. And I'm going to put this on the outside of that plate like this. However, it's not just going to stay by itself. So I'm going to take some needle nose pliers and bend the end so it stays under the lip that goes around. There's also a lip at the bottom, so it'll be up against that. I initially just glue it under the bottom and on the sides here. There are little indentations because it's fancy around the edge that you can set this in and then glue it. I want it to sit straight up and down. However, it will not stay like that. And later on in the video, I change it, but I don't have footage of that. So I'm going to tell you how I did it right here. I take some little wooden beads with a hole in them, and I glue them underneath those edges and then put the wire in that. So I will remind you of that later. But right now I am taking Waverly white chalk paint. You can take any white paint. This just dries really fast. And mine is a little thick because it's a little old. And I'm covering that up because I don't want it to be gold. Once I get that on there all covered, I am next going to take some Mod Podge and I am going to cover the entire bottom of this plate and the handle once it's dried. And then I'm going to take this Dollar Tree fake snow and cover all of those. So I'm going to wipe this on all the way around, all the way to the edge and on the handle. And then once I have that done, I am going to shake on a ton of this white snow. I'm just going to go ahead and pour out most of the bag all over the entire thing and make sure I coat everything. I'm going to pick it up and coat the handle underneath and on the sides. And then I put down a paper towel so I can dump all the excess on it. And then I'll just put it back into the baggie. And then I'm taking my Ryobi heat gun, my big bad boy one, and I'm drying it all. Now you can put the snow down with hot glue too, but do not reheat it up with the heat gun to dry it. It will just melt the glue again. The easiest way to do it, I think, is with Mod Podge or make like Elmer's glue or something. Then I'm taking those snowflakes that are on the long piece of fishing wire and I'm wrapping it around. I'm starting with the one that's more circular and I'm making a knot and then wrapping it around again and making another knot. And then I'm going to cut off the excess after I put a little dab of hot glue on there. I'm using my mini hot glue gun because it dispenses less glue for this instead of my big bad boy Ryobi hot glue gun. I use the mini one because the nozzles on it are a little bit smaller. And I'm going to do this with the other two that are more like a star. And I'm going to hang those a little higher than the one that I do in the middle. So it'll be closer to the top. The middle one's going to hang down about 2.5 inches and the other one's about 1.5 inch. Doing the same thing, tying it around and then cutting it off and dabbing some hot glue on. Next, I have these branches. These in my hand, the white ones, are from Hobby Lobby. They were on clearance and for like 60% off. I'm going to cut off the stems and then I'm going to start to decorate this plate. I want it to look like a woodland scene, but a snowy woodland scene. So most of the things that I'm going to put on here have snow on them, like these. The longer branch at the bottom that I have down there is from Joann's, and it has like a frosty look to it, but not a snowy look. I used it in my last video when I did my owl wreath, and if you didn't see that, I will be linking that down in my description down below. But I cut some of those off too because it looks like more of a tree that the leaves all fell off and it didn't get a ton of snow on it. And so I'm going to glue those down just by putting a dab of glue down and sticking it in there and holding it until it dries. I sped up this footage. It takes quite a while for them to dry and stand up. Then I have some bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree. I have the green ones and the white ones, and I'm going to glue several of them all along the bottom. You can use any little trees that you want to use or picks that look like trees. I'm going to be setting down my resin pieces to see exactly where I want some of them to go, like this tree. They stand up on their own, but this tree's a little wobbly, and so I'm gluing it down right away so I know where I can put other pieces and where this tree I like. You can put it anywhere you want on here. I have two of the trees. They're different sizes, and I decided to do two of the smaller acrylic houses and then one of the bigger ones, the one that's the longest. But I do put down a whole lot more trees or foliage or woodland pieces to this. Then I took this piece of styrofoam that I had and I'm going to put glue on it and then dip it in some of the fake snow that I have sitting there and put that bigger, if you can see, resin piece house on top of it because I wanted it to have dimension and be more 3D and be able to see that house because it's going to be in the back of it. So the only resin that I have glued down is that first tree, and then I'm filling in more of the green pieces and the wood pieces and stuff that I want it to look like they're out in the woods. So once I get all of that on, then I'm going to glue down my actual houses. So I already had determined where they were going to be, and I'm going to glue down this little tree here, and then one house next to it, the big house on that part that I covered in snow, and then this other house in the front. And then I have one of the little deer. I thought I was going to put two of them in there, but I only put one on this actual tray. And then this part of this DIY will be almost done. I take some of these picks here that are from Dollar Tree that look like pine, and they have snow on them too. These are really messy. And I cut them in half, or I cut them in little pieces, and I actually turn them upside down, and they look like little pine trees, like straight up and down pine trees. Not like bottle brush trees, but like little pine trees. So I fill in some around the front here because there were some gaps. And then I put some in the back in front of where that styrofoam piece was as well. You can decorate this any kind of way you want. It's all personal preference. This is just what I'm doing, and I know it's a little hard to see because I'm filming coming down, but believe me, you'll see it all when I get it done and you'll understand exactly what I mean. So now I still have houses left, and I decided I'm going to make two of these. I have this glass cutting board from Dollar Tree, and it fits perfectly in the green foam wreath form, but I really like this grapevine form that I have, and it is about a 12-inch wreath form. I ended up getting that at a thrift store, but Dollar Tree has some smaller versions of it, and they also have different kinds of wood wreath forms, so you could do that too. So now what I'm doing is I'm just decorating this one the same way I did the other one without the arch over it and the snowflakes. I'm just sticking down pieces where I want them to go. As you can see, this cutting board is a whole lot smaller than the other one, and I did not put snow down on it right away. I'm gonna figure out where I want all my trees, my bottle brush ones, all my little branch trees. I'm gonna cut up some more of those picks that's over there. I'm figuring out where I want my houses to sit. I have 3 of them left, and I have another little deer, and I have several of the resin little trees too, and I'm gonna glue all of those down. And then when I know where everything's gonna go and I get part of it down, I'm going to actually put glue down on the little cutting board and then just sprinkle some snow on top of it. I don't show you guys all of that because you saw what I was doing with the other one, and it's basically the same thing. It's just in like a different spot or a different area, if you get my drift. Like they're not matchy, but they have a lot of the same pieces on it because I want it all to be cohesive because they're going to be right next to each other. So that's all I'm doing, is I'm deciding where I want to put the little pieces, and since this is smaller, I cut some of the pieces down smaller. So now I have these picks, and I have about 8 of them. I had some left from last year, and some of my family members bought me some things. They're always buying me stuff from Dollar Tree to craft with, and so I take all of the little pine pieces off the pick, and I am going to make my very own pine wreath on this grapevine wreath. I'm doing this because the first set of resin pieces that I did on the fancier plate with the arch is going to sit on a snow covered pine wreath, and I thought it would be good to have the other one sit on one as well. And I'm showing you that you can make your own and not have to pay as much as some of the stores are charging for them right now. So all I'm doing is making sure I put some around the edge, I put some around the inner edge, and then I put some around the top. I'm tucking them in underneath each other. And I'm going to go all the way around. It doesn't take that long. I sped it up and skipped some of it because nobody wants to watch me do this. I end up getting one more and filling in where it doesn't look very full, and it works out perfectly. So once I'm done with it, you will see that I can then take and set the second piece on the cutting board right on top of this reform, and that's what we're going to do. But first, after I'm done with this one, I'm going to wrap fairy lights around my pine wreath that I got on clearance at Joann Fabrics that I'll show you in a second. And then I do have some lights that I put into this one as well. Also, I have some bottle brush trees, some big ones that came from Dollar Tree, and I made a couple of other little acrylic trees and some resin that I had left over. But this is how everything turned out. I am in love with this project. I think it turned out really, really well, and I'm so excited that I could make a little winter village out of epoxy resin and some silicone molds from Joann's, some treat molds that you would make like candy or baked goods in. I have done resin in baking pans that were silicone before, but these are just regular little treat molds, and it worked out perfectly. You can see the big reform here that came just like this. It was already flocked, and I have some fairy lights in the bottom of it. They're hard to see because it is daylight. And then underneath the plate, I have a puck light that shines bright white, and this is what that looks like. This is the first one that I did. It looks like it's snowing down on the village, and I am completely in love with it. And here's the second one with the reform that I made, and I put a smaller puck light underneath this one that came from Dollar Tree, and it shines through really well too in bright white. I also had these string lights that have like little white bulbs on them. They're not my favorite, and I'm going to change it out to bright white fairy lights, but I didn't have any more left in my stash. So I also put some snow on the top of these buildings on this one, just to give it a little different look than the other one, to see how it was going to turn out. And I love how that looks as well. There are a few tiny bubbles in some of the houses, but I think it just gives a whimsical, magical look to it. It's winter and things look icy. My girlfriend saw this. I sent her a picture and she said it looks exactly like someone sculpted this out of ice. A little miniature village sculpted out of ice, and I'm in love with it. You guys have to let me know. Comment down below. Do you love this? Are you going to try this? It was so easy. The hardest part is waiting for it to be done, because resin does take about 24 hours to harden. And I love how the snowflakes are. You could take these and actually put them on your Christmas tree. You wouldn't have to back them on each other as ornaments like I showed you with the blue ones. I'm actually gifting those to my mother. So I think it's so versatile what you can do with resin for this season. And these little trees were some leftover resin that I had from a different project that wasn't even winter or Christmas theme. You can keep this out for the entire holiday season, but since it doesn't say Merry Christmas on any of this, on the snowflakes or the houses, it can stay out all winter long. There's actually a few houses that just have like a little wreath on the door, and you could really use these in tiered trays or even put them out all year long, not just winter. You can just decorate around them differently for each season. Yes, the little trees and the little snowflakes kind of scream winter, but the houses, they actually don't. So I don't know if I'm going to make more in different colors or if I'm going to just use these throughout the year, or if I'm going to see if they have different molds for different seasons or different holidays at Joann's. This is so pretty. Here it is at night. You can see the little fairy lights down in the wreath. I'm going to get more and probably put a few more down in the bottom of it and switch out the other ones to little fairy lights. I have these sitting at my front door on the entryway table side by side, and this is what they look like with just the puck lights underneath lit up. And then this is what they look like with both of the wreath forms lit up and the puck lights. And I remembered my puck lights turned colors, so I turned it to green, and I absolutely love how this looks. I think it's really pretty and festive. And it also turned to red, which is not my favorite, but green and red together do scream Christmas. And it also lights up like a purpley blue, and I absolutely love this one as well. So that is it for this video. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber here yet at Lacee Space. I'm going to be bringing you some more cool DIYs coming up shortly, and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye, loves.